Welcome back, Marvel fans. Let's be honest, we all love stumbling upon deleted scenes from our favorite Marvel films. The MCU has no shortage of deleted scenes across its 24 films, ranging from those we wish had made it into the film to those that we are glad they kept out of the final product. Today, we'll be running through our picks for the top 10 MCU scenes that we are glad were deleted. From Peter Parker's to-do list all the way to Obadiah's original death scene in Iron Man. Stick around to the end and let us know if you think any of these should have made the final cut. Up first, Odin's alternate death from Thor Ragnarok. Odin's death scene in Thor Ragnarok was a last-minute reshoot. In the original trailer for the film, you can see the original location of the death scene, which took place in a New York alley. Taika Waititi reshot it after test audiences felt that the scene just didn't feel right. Doctor Strange pinpoints Odin's location in the city and gives him a key to unlock Loki from a porta-potty. Thor and Loki go to get Odin, who is now a crazed old man. He is kind of out of it, and he says that he can no longer hold Hela back. This leads to Hela breaking out of Niflheim and stabbing Odin in the stomach. At this point, Mjolnir is broken, and the three children of Odin are swept into the Bifrost beam. It's easy to see how test audiences took issue with this scene and why YTT felt the need to reshoot it, which may explain why the CGI is not perfect like it is throughout the rest of the film, because it was a last-minute addition that they didn't have a lot of time to perfect. In the version of the scene that made the final cut, Odin has a sweet moment with his sons and then transcends into nothing so that he can be sucked away to Valhalla. A much better death for the King of Asgard. Tony at the way station from Avengers Endgame. Tony and Morgan at the way station is a scene that takes place in between Iron Man snapping his fingers and Thanos' death. It was designed to be a sort of mirror to the Thanos and Gamora scene at the climax of Avengers Infinity War, and the idea of having an identical scene to that one is a good concept, but it was botched in its execution. The scene shows Tony appear in the Soul World, and he is joined by a grown-up Morgan Stark. The scene serves to put Tony at peace by showing that Morgan will be just fine without him. They have a conversation that is a couple minutes long, and then Tony says, "I love you 3000. At which point the movie cuts back to the battle where Thanos and all of his forces are dusted away. This scene does not work for a few reasons, the first of which being that Catherine Langford's portrayal of Morgan Stark is not one that the audience is familiar with. Lexi Rabe played Tony Stark's daughter throughout the whole movie, and when she gets aged up, it feels like a completely different character. Also, Catherine Langford's chemistry with Robert Downey Jr. was not anywhere near the level as Lexi Rabe's was. Let's compare it to the Thanos scene in Infinity War. There was an entire scene just dedicated to showing Thanos talking with young Gamora. The scene also isn't nearly as long, and it doesn't feel like it drags on. The ominous and haunting nature that the snap gave in Infinity War enhanced the Waystation scene because it added a level of mystery to what was happening. Endgame's Waystation brings a halt to the heroic yet sad feeling that we're supposed to have. We know Tony is going to die, but seeing this scene right after the final I Am Iron Man absolutely destroys the pace. And lastly, we also agree with the Russo brothers that leaving this scene in would make the eulogy later on feel repetitive, and that is definitely the more important of the two scenes. Thor and Loki before Thor's coronation from Thor. This scene is actually incredible. It is very well written, and the conversation between Thor and Loki does a lot to show how strong their bond is in just a couple minutes. On top of that, we get to see Thor's pride, as well as Loki's mischievous personality, all set to the backdrop of Patrick Doyle's excellent score for the film. The issue with this scene, though, lies in its placement. This scene takes place after the prologue of the film, and sits just before Thor's coronation, or rather, Thor's lack of a coronation. Part of the excellence of that scene is the reveal of Thor in all of his might, wielding Mjolnir and in his full outfit, including a helmet. And even though this scene is good, revealing Thor in that scene just to reveal him again one scene later would take the power out of it when all the Asgardians cheer for him. Although, if Branagh elected to tell a non-linear story, there probably would have been room for the scene somewhere in the film. But as it stands, we are glad that this scene was deleted, despite how amazing it is. Obadiah's original death from Iron Man. Obadiah Stane's death scene in the first Iron Man film was originally longer than the one we saw. After getting hit by the arc reactor, he falls forward onto the foundation of the building and tries to climb out of his suit. Tony was torn on whether or not he should save him and decided to try and help him. But then, Obadiah grabbed Tony's hand to pull them both down into the arc reactor. This caused Tony to eject his gauntlet, resulting in Obadiah falling down into the reactor below. After that, there's a shot of Pepper looking down at Tony with a flashlight, and then the shot that we all know of an unconscious Tony with a flickering arc reactor. The scene just comes across as unnecessary filler. The conversation between Tony and Obadiah doesn't really seem to add anything, and the moment with Pepper doesn't seem to have much of a purpose besides an extra shot. All in all, Jon Favreau's idea to delete most of this scene and reduce it down to just Obadiah falling and the final shot of Tony was definitely the right play. Peter's to-do list from Spider-Man: Far From Home. Many of you might think of Peter's to-do list as the short film that you got with your purchase of Spider-Man: Far From Home. Well, Peter's to-do list was actually a series of scenes completed for the final cut of the film that were deleted in the edit and put together to be a short film. The short film is a list of tasks that Peter Parker has to do before his trip to Europe, including buying the dual headphone adapter, travel toothpaste, selling his action figures, and taking down a crime family. It's a great series of scenes that were thankfully given to us in their completed form, and the reason for being deleted makes a lot of sense. John Watts said that putting those scenes in the final cut of the film would have slowed down the first act. The collection of scenes that made up Peter's to-do list don't have any impact on the story of the film besides just being fun scenes. It was great to see Peter's to-do list, but it was great to see it as its own thing instead of filler in the movie. Vision's alternate birth from Avengers: Age of Ultron. Vision's birth in Avengers: Age of Ultron is a very memorable scene, but it originally went down much differently. Director Joss Whedon shot an entire fight scene between Vision and the Avengers. Once Vision awakens, he attacks Thor in fear. Captain America throws his shield, Tony gets his suit, and Thor has a one-on-one with the newly created android. The fight introduced Vision's wide array of powers, including the beam he can shoot from his forehead, and his ability to phase through things. Vision put on his outfit midway through the fight, and it ended when Iron Man shot him and he flew toward the window, leading to the rest of the scene that we saw in the final cut of the film. In Age of Ultron, Vision's birth takes place between the fight in Korea and the Battle of Sokovia, and even though the fight in this scene was small, it doesn't feel necessary to sandwich a fight between two large-scale battles. As for story purpose, Vision is not supposed to be like Ultron. He proves that to the team when he starts speaking. After Ultron was born, he immediately started attacking. Vision attacked Thor out of confusion and realized his mistake just moments later when he finally came to. Having Vision choose violence right after coming out of the cradle would have been too similar to Ultron. And for that reason, we're glad Joss Whedon chose to delete most of this and skip right to Vision's interaction with the team. Loki's coronation from Thor: The Dark World. After the Battle of Vanaheim, Thor: The Dark World cut back to Asgard in a scene that mirrors Thor's original coronation scene in the first film. Except, Loki rises to the top of the steps, summons Mjolnir, and stands in front of the Asgardian people as their new king. This seems to be a fan-favorite deleted scene, so some of you may be upset to see it on this list, but it makes sense why the scene was deleted. It just doesn't add anything. Sure, the scene is all an illusion by Loki, but the question that raises is why is this the illusion that Loki decided to entertain himself with? The first Thor movie clearly establishes that Loki never wanted the throne. He only ever wanted to be Thor's equal. He just wanted to be recognized and treated fairly. This is a concept that the Loki series dedicated a lot of its runtime to, so in a way, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why Loki would imagine himself as king when he stated previously that that's not what he wanted. Although Thor: The Dark World ends with Loki on the throne of Asgard. So does he want a throne or not? The MCU seems to be unsure. This scene is good, but it just doesn't need to be there. It changes the structure of the Asgard reveal for the film, takes the focus away from Thor, and overall just doesn't add anything to the film. It's a good scene, but it doesn't need to be here. Star-Lord's Monument from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. In Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, there was a scene just after the Guardians got to Ego's planet that featured Ego creating a statue for his son. The statue had Peter standing strong, with Gamora clutching his leg, Drax as a monkey on his shoulder, and Ronan dead at Peter's feet. Peter loves the statue, but Gamora and Drax criticize it for good reason. Then the movie goes on. It's a fun deleted scene that certainly doesn't take anything away from the movie, but it makes perfect sense as to why James Gunn chose to delete it. The scene exists purely as a joke and is placed right in the middle of Ego explaining the planet. The movie gets enough criticism for being a giant piece of exposition that comes to a halt once they get to Ego's planet, and leaving this scene in would have slowed down the sequence even more. It also goes against the persona that Ego created for himself. He tried to be very welcoming of both Gamora and Drax, and make his planet feel like a home. This scene would have had him break both of those instantly. All in all, it's just an unnecessary scene. Happy Hogan cameo from Avengers: Infinity War. There was originally a scene featuring Jon Favreau's character Happy Hogan in Avengers: Infinity War. It took place after Tony mentioned his dream about Pepper being pregnant. Happy pulled up in a golf cart and made some comments about how Tony and Pepper should elope because the publicity is stressing him out. After that, Happy spots a paparazzi staked out in the bushes and pursues him. Bert, the paparazzi, was actually a cameo by director Joe Russo. The scene honestly feels out of place. Sure, it's great to see the Iron Man crew, but the scene exists for no reason other than a quick joke. Especially because the two scenes before it in the movie featured the death of Loki and Bruce Banner crashing on Earth, followed by the title card. Putting a joke right after that and then going back to the dark and ominous tone that the movie held for a majority of its runtime would have felt weird. Instead, the joke was cut and the movie skips right to Doctor Strange fetching Tony Stark. And it's a much better choice. Doctor Strange and Wong music trivia from Doctor Strange. Before the ending of Doctor Strange, there was a scene where Strange and Wong are in the sanctum and Wong makes a music comment, at which point Strange corrects him. But then, Wong corrects Strange, beating him in music trivia, something Stephen Strange is notoriously good at. Wong laughs and then leaves the room, leaving Doctor Strange in awe. It's surprising that this quick scene wasn't in the movie, but the issue with this scene arises from the purpose of it. The entire point of the scene is to get Wong to laugh. But he had already done that in the previous scene, with a comment that is more relevant to Wong's interests and Strange's sense of humor. There was really no need to double down on that joke, so director Scott Derrickson decided to cut it. Of all the deleted scenes on this list, this is the one that most deserves a spot in the movie. So, would you have preferred to see any of these in the final films? Let us know below. And remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.